Base perimeter breach. 2 bodies in the snow. Jack Thorne's flashlight beam cut through the blizzard at Fort Carson, revealing a female police officer and German Shepherd, both bound with military-grade rope, barely breathing in the freezing Colorado night. Blood stained the white ground beneath them. Great. More civilian problems for us to clean up, Sergeant Harrison muttered over radio from the watchtower, his voice dripping with annoyance. Jack didn't respond. He knelt beside the unconscious woman, checking her pulse while scanning the perimeter. Professional rope work. Fresh tracks leading to the restricted service road, a challenge coin half buried in snow near her hand, JSOC insignia still visible. The German Shepherd's eyes suddenly snapped open, locking on to Jack with laser focus. No random animal panic. The dog's gaze was deliberate, intelligent, urgent, pointing toward a specific direction in the tree line. Its ears twitched in a pattern, like Morse code. "Sir, what's your status on the cleanup?" Harrison's voice crackled again, impatient. Jack studied the dog's behavior. Trained, military trained. The animal was trying to communicate something critical. "Copy that, bringing them to medical," he replied, knowing the real operation was just beginning. Until the dog's next movement revealed this wasn't a rescue, it was the start of a hunt. The medical facility at Fort Carson hummed with the familiar sounds of military efficiency. Fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across the sterile white walls as Jack carried the unconscious woman through the automatic doors, the German Shepherd limping beside him despite his injuries. The night duty corpsman, a young specialist named Rodriguez, looked up from his paperwork with surprise. "What do we have here?" Rodriguez asked, immediately moving to clear an examination table. "2 injured, found them near the perimeter fence," Jack replied, gently placing the woman on the table. Her light gray t-shirt was torn and stained, her long, light brown hair escaping from what had once been a neat high bun. Even unconscious, her features were striking. High cheekbones, fair porcelain skin marked with natural freckles, and a regal quality that seemed out of place in the harsh military setting. Rodriguez began his assessment. Dislocated shoulder, probable hypothermia. "She's lucky you found her when you did." He moved to examine the dog. "This guy's got a bullet graze along his flank. Clean entry and exit, but he's lost some blood." As Rodriguez worked, something peculiar happened. The woman, still unconscious, began muttering softly. Jack leaned closer to listen. "Lima. Charlie, copy your last transmission. Stand by for sit rep," she mumbled, her voice barely audible but the radio protocol perfect. Jack's eyebrows raised. Civilians didn't speak in military communications protocols, especially not with such precision. He glanced at the dog, who had positioned himself protectively beside the table despite his own injuries. The animal's behavior was equally telling. Disciplined, alert, refusing to leave his handler's side even when Rodriguez tried to lead him to a separate examination area. Rodriguez found the police badge clipped to her belt. "Detective, looks like, but there's no identification card or wallet. Strange." Before Jack could respond, heavy footsteps echoed in the corridor. Sergeant Major Harrison appeared in the doorway, his bald head gleaming under the fluorescence, his blue military t-shirt stretched across his barrel chest. His expression was one of barely concealed irritation. "We're not a charity ward for civilian problems," Harrison announced without preamble, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed without question. Rodriguez looked up from bandaging the dog's wound. "Sir, they both need immediate care. The woman has significant injuries, and the animal—" "I don't care if they need surgery," Harrison interrupted. "Transfer them to civilian hospital as soon as this storm clears. We have regulations about non-military personnel using base facilities." The medical bay fell silent, except for the steady beeping of monitoring equipment. Rodriguez exchanged glances with another corpsman, both clearly uncomfortable with the order, but unwilling to challenge a senior NCO. Jack noticed the irony. Directly above Harrison's head hung a poster outlining emergency medical protocols, boldly stating the military creed of leaving no one behind. "Sir, the roads are completely impassable," Rodriguez ventured quietly. "Civilian ambulances can't get through until morning at the earliest." Harrison's face darkened. "Then they wait until morning. I'm not running a hotel for lost civilians and their pets. If this story of courage and loyalty is touching your heart, please share it with someone who needs a message of hope today. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to hit that thanks button to support our channel." Jack felt his jaw tighten, but said nothing. He'd learned long ago when to pick his battles, and this wasn't the time or place. But the unconscious woman's earlier words echoed in his mind, along with the perfect military bearing of her canine partner. "Get them stable and comfortable," Harrison continued. "But I want them out first thing when the road's clear, and post someone to watch them. We don't know who they are or why they were on base property." As Harrison's footsteps faded down the corridor, Rodriguez shook his head. "Sometimes I wonder how some people make it to senior positions," he muttered under his breath. The woman's eyes fluttered open just as Harrison's voice disappeared. She blinked slowly, taking in her surroundings with the careful assessment of someone trained to read situations quickly. Her captivating green eyes moved from the medical equipment to Jack's face, then immediately sought out her companion. "Titan," she whispered, her voice hoarse but filled with relief when she spotted the German Shepherd lying on a blanket nearby. The dog's ears perked up at his name, and he managed a weak tail wag. Even injured, Titan attempted to move closer to his handler, but Rodriguez gently restrained him. "Easy there, both of you," Rodriguez said kindly. "You've been through quite an ordeal. I'm Specialist Rodriguez. This is the one who found you," he indicated Jack. The woman's gaze returned to Jack, studying him with an intensity that suggested she was cataloging details, assessing threat levels. "Thank you," she said simply. "You were mumbling radio protocols earlier," Jack observed carefully. "Military background?" A flicker of something, surprise, concern, crossed her features before she composed herself. "I watch a lot of police procedurals," she said with a weak smile that didn't reach her eyes. Jack wasn't buying it, but he let it slide for now. "What's your name?" "Alara Vance, detective with Silver Ridge Police Department." She tried to sit up, wincing as pain shot through her injured shoulder. "How long have I been unconscious?" "About 6 hours." "It's just past 0800, Jack replied, then caught himself using military time reference. If she was really just a civilian detective, she might find that odd. But Alara didn't react to the time format at all. Instead, she was scanning the room with the systematic approach of someone checking exits and potential threats. Jack filed that detail away as well. "We need to contact my department," she said. "There are people who need to know I'm safe." Rodriguez handed her a cup of warm broth. "Phone lines are down base-wide due to the storm. Should be restored within a few hours." Alara accepted the broth gratefully, but Jack noticed how she held the cup, not with the casual grip of a civilian, but with the careful control of someone who had been trained to maintain situational awareness, even during routine activities. Her eyes never stopped moving, constantly assessing the room and its occupants. "Your dog is remarkable," Rodriguez commented, watching as Titan managed to inch closer to Alara despite his injuries. "Most animals would be panicking after trauma like that. He's incredibly disciplined." "He's special," Alara replied softly, reaching down to gently stroke Titan's head. The gesture seemed to calm both of them. Jack decided to test a theory. "Rodriguez, what's the status on the DFAC? They serving breakfast yet? Should be open for another hour or so. Why? These folks should probably get some food in them once they're stable enough to move around." Jack looked at Alara. "If you're feeling up to it, we could get you something warm to eat." Alara nodded, and Jack noticed she automatically glanced at her wrist as if checking a watch that wasn't there. Another small detail that seemed inconsistent with someone who was supposedly just a civilian in the wrong place at the wrong time. As Rodriguez finished treating both patients, Jack helped Alara to her feet. She was unsteady but determined, and when she whistled softly to Titan, the dog immediately moved to heel position at her left side, exactly where a military working dog would position himself. "Interesting technique," Jack commented casually. "YouTube," Alara replied quickly. "Amazing what you can learn online these days." Jack smiled but said nothing. Every interaction was adding to his growing certainty that Detective Alara Vance was far more than she appeared to be. The dining facility at Fort Carson buzzed with the controlled chaos of military breakfast service. Steam rose from industrial-sized containers of eggs and bacon, while the clatter of metal trays and utensils created a familiar symphony that any service member could recognize from a mile away. The air was thick with the smell of coffee, bacon grease, and the unique institutional aroma of a military chow hall. Jack guided Alara and Titan through the entrance, noting how naturally she fell into the base's rhythm. Her borrowed light gray t-shirt and slim dark military pants, along with her brown combat boots, helped her blend in better than her torn civilian clothes would have. Her long light brown hair had been resecured in a messy high bun, with a few loose curls framing her face in a way that somehow made her striking features even more noticeable. Tables are self-serve, Jack explained, handing her a tray. Nothing fancy, but it's hot and filling. As they moved through the serving line, Jack observed Alara's behavior closely. She automatically checked the field of fire from the serving area to potential exit points. Her eyes swept the room in a pattern that suggested training and tactical assessment. When the soldier behind the serving counter asked what she wanted, she replied, 0800 hours is perfect timing for scrambled eggs, without seeming to realize she'd used military time reference. Titan stayed in perfect heel position throughout the process, his discipline remarkable for an animal who had been severely injured less than 12 hours ago. Several soldiers noticed the German Shepherd, but made no comment. Military working dogs were common enough on base that nobody questioned his presence. They found seats at a table near the corner, where Alara immediately positioned herself with her back to the wall and clear sight lines to all entrances. Old habits, Jack mused. So, Detective Vance, Jack said as they began eating, what brings Silver Ridge PD into our neck of the woods? Alara was quiet for a moment, carefully chewing her food, following up on some reports about unusual activity in the area. Probably just kids partying in the woods, but we had some concerned citizens call it in. Must have been some party to leave you and your partner tied up in the snow. Her fork paused halfway to her mouth. I don't remember much about what happened. Head injury, probably. Hopefully it'll come back to me. Jack nodded, but he was watching Titan, who had suddenly become alert. The dog's ears had perked up, and he was staring intently across the DFIC toward a table where several NCOs were having breakfast. His focus seemed particularly drawn to one soldier, Lieutenant Colonel Brooks, who was speaking quietly with two other officers. Your dog seems interested in something, Jack observed. Alara followed Titan's gaze, and Jack caught a flash of recognition in her eyes before she quickly looked away. He's probably just hoping someone will drop food. He's always been food-motivated. But Titan wasn't displaying food-seeking behavior. His posture was tense, alert, almost predatory. This was a dog tracking something, not begging for scraps. The moment was interrupted by heavy footsteps approaching their table. Lieutenant Colonel Brooks himself appeared, his presence immediately commanding attention from nearby diners. A tall man with sharp features and calculating eyes, Brooks wore his authority like a uniform. His rank insignia gleamed under the harsh fluorescent lighting. "Ma'am, Chief," Brooks said, his tone professionally neutral but carrying an undercurrent of scrutiny. "I heard we had some unexpected visitors last night." "Yes, sir." "This is Detective Vance from Silver Ridge PD," Jack replied, noting how Alara's posture had subtly shifted to a more defensive stance. Brooks studied Alara with the intensity of someone accustomed to evaluating potential threats. "Detective? That's quite an ordeal you've been through. I trust our medical staff took good care of you?" "Yes, sir. Everyone has been very professional," Alara replied politely. "Good to hear. I'm always interested when local law enforcement has business in our area. What brings you to our neck of the woods?" "Routine follow-up on some citizen reports, sir. Nothing that should interfere with base operations." Brooks's eyes narrowed slightly. "What kind of reports?" "Vehicle traffic in restricted forest areas. Could be anything from illegal dumping to poaching. We just want to make sure we're coordinating properly with military security." Smart thinking. Although I have to say, most local agencies would send a patrol officer for that kind of liaison work, not a detective. Brooks glanced down at Titan, who was now sitting in perfect military attention posture. "And that's quite an impressive working dog you have there." "Thank you, sir. Titan's had excellent training. I can see that. His bearing reminds me of our military working dogs. Very disciplined." Brooks paused, watching for her reaction. Almost like he's been around military environments before. Jack saw Alara's jaw tighten almost imperceptibly. "I have family in the service, sir. Titan's been exposed to different training methods. Is that so?" "What branch?" "Army, sir. My brother's with the 82nd Airborne." Brooks nodded slowly, but his expression remained skeptical. "Well, Detective, I hope you'll understand that base security requires us to be thorough about unexpected visitors, especially ones found under unusual circumstances." The threat in his voice was subtle but unmistakable. Jack felt his instincts sharpen, recognizing the tone of someone who was probing for weaknesses. "Of course, sir. We appreciate the hospitality and don't want to cause any problems. I'm sure you don't." Brooks looked directly at Titan, who met his gaze with unwavering intensity. "Your partner there seems very alert, almost like he's evaluating potential threats. He's protective, sir. It's what makes him good at his job. Indeed. Brooks straightened, his decision apparently made. Well, I'll let you finish your breakfast. But I want both of you escorted when you're moving around base. Security protocols, you understand. As Brooks walked away, Jack noticed that Titan's entire demeanor changed. The dog's hackles raised slightly, and he tracked the lieutenant colonel's movement across the room with the intensity of a predator watching prey. Your dog really doesn't seem to like him, Jack observed quietly. Titan's an excellent judge of character, Alara replied, her voice carefully neutral, but with an edge that hadn't been there before. Is there something you want to tell me about what really happened last night? Alara was quiet for a long moment, and Jack could see her weighing her options. Finally, she sighed. Look, I appreciate everything you've done for us, but there are some things that are complicated. Complicated how? The kind of complicated that can get people hurt if they're not careful. Jack leaned back in his chair, studying her carefully. What if I told you I've been in situations where being careful wasn't really an option? You think this detective has more training than she's letting on? Comment below with your theories about Alara's real background. Their conversation was interrupted by the approach of Chief Warrant Officer Martinez, a weathered veteran whose bearing suggested decades of military service. Martinez was known throughout the base as someone who had worked his way up through the ranks and earned his position through competence rather than politics. "Morning, folks," Martinez said, pulling up a chair without invitation. "Heard we had some unexpected visitors last night." "Chief," Jack acknowledged with a nod of respect. Martinez studied Alara for a moment, then glanced at Titan. "That's a fine-looking working dog you have there, Detective. German Shepherd, male, looks to be about 3 or 4 years old, probably 90 pounds. Am I close?" "Very close," Alara replied, her voice betraying nothing. "I've worked with a lot of military working dogs over the years, trained a few myself. Your partner there has some interesting characteristics." Martinez paused, watching for her reaction. His positioning, his alertness level, the way he responds to environmental changes, that's not typical civilian police training. Jack saw Alara's shoulders tense slightly, though her expression remained neutral. "As I mentioned to Lieutenant Colonel Brooks, I have family in the military. Titans had exposure to different training methods." Martinez smiled slightly. "Lieutenant Colonel Brooks? Interesting that he'd take personal interest in a routine civilian visit. He seemed concerned about base security," Jack offered. "I'm sure he was." Martinez's tone carried a weight that suggested deeper knowledge. "Tell you what, Detective, since you and your partner are going to be our guests for a while, how about I show you around the base a bit? Might help pass the time until the road's clear. That's very kind, but we don't want to impose. No imposition at all. In fact, I insist. Base security requires that all civilian visitors be accompanied by authorized personnel anyway." Jack recognized the subtle but unmistakable shift in tone. Martinez wasn't making a friendly offer, he was issuing a polite order. And from the way Alara's posture straightened slightly, she recognized it too. "Of course, we'd appreciate the tour." As they stood to leave, Jack noticed Titan's behavior once again. The dog didn't just follow. He swept the room one final time, his gaze lingering on specific individuals before moving to potential threat positions. This wasn't casual animal awareness. This was tactical assessment. They walked across the base toward the maintenance hangars, with Martinez keeping up a steady stream of conversation designed to appear casual while actually probing for information. Alara answered his questions politely but carefully, never volunteering more detail than absolutely necessary. "So, Silver Ridge PD," Martinez said as they approached a large aircraft maintenance facility. "That's what, about a 4-hour drive from here? Long way to come for a routine follow-up." "Not routine, exactly. We've had reports of unusual vehicle traffic in the national forest areas. Since some of that borders military land, we wanted to coordinate with base security. Smart thinking. What kind of vehicles? Heavy trucks, mostly at night. Could be anything from illegal dumping to poaching. We just want to make sure we're not stepping on any ongoing military operations." Martinez nodded approvingly. "Good protocol. Although I have to say, most local law enforcement wouldn't send a detective for that kind of liaison work. Usually more of a patrol officer task." Alara didn't respond immediately, and Jack saw her unconsciously scan the hangar's interior layout as they entered. Her eyes moved systematically from entry points to potential cover positions to emergency exits. It was subtle, but unmistakably the behavior of someone with tactical training. "I volunteered," she said finally. "I like working with different agencies. Good for building relationships." The hangar was busy with routine maintenance operations. Several helicopters were in various stages of repair, and the organized chaos of military logistics filled the vast space with purposeful activity. The smell of hydraulic fluid, metal polish, and jet fuel created an atmosphere that was uniquely military. Titan's behavior became even more interesting in this environment. Instead of the uncertainty or excitement most civilian dogs would show in such a complex setting, he moved with complete confidence. More importantly, he began showing signs of focused interest in specific areas, particularly near a section where supply containers were staged for transport. "Your dog seems comfortable around aircraft," Martinez observed. "He's well socialized," Alara replied, but Jack noticed she was paying close attention to Titan's behavior. "Most dogs are nervous around the noise and smells. Titan there acts like he's been around military equipment before." The dog in question had stopped near a row of shipping containers and was displaying behavior that Jack recognized from his own experience with explosive detection dogs. Titan's nose was working the air currents, and his posture had shifted to what could only be described as alert indication. "Is everything all right?" Martinez asked, noticing the change in Titan's demeanor. "He's probably picking up interesting scents. Lots of new smells in here for a dog." But Jack was watching more carefully. Titan wasn't showing general curiosity. He was demonstrating the focused, systematic search pattern of a dog trained to detect specific substances. And whatever he was detecting, it was coming from those shipping containers. "Chief Martinez," Jack said quietly, "what's typically stored in those containers? Routine supplies mostly, parts, equipment, sometimes hazardous materials for aircraft maintenance. Why?" "Just wondering." Jack looked at Alara, who was now watching Titan with obvious concern. The dog had moved to a specific container and was sitting in a perfect alert posture, a clear indication behavior that any handler would recognize. But instead of praising him or investigating, Alara whistled softly, calling him back to heel position. "Interesting response," Martinez commented. "Most handlers would want to know what their dog found interesting. He gets excited around new environments. Best to keep him focused." Martinez studied both Alara and Titan for a long moment. "You know, Detective, I've been around working dogs for over 20 years. What your partner just did isn't excitement or curiosity. That was an indication response for substance detection." The hangar suddenly felt much quieter, despite the ongoing maintenance work around them. Jack could sense the tension ratcheting up, as Martinez's questions became more pointed. "I think there might be some things we need to discuss," Martinez continued, "privately." Before anyone could respond, a sharp whistle echoed through the hangar. All three humans turned to see Lieutenant Colonel Brooks approaching with two military police officers in tow. His expression was no longer politely suspicious. It was coldly determined. "Chief Martinez," Brooks called out as he drew near, "I need to speak with our civilian guests. There's been a development." Jack felt his instincts kick into high gear. The arrival of military police and Brooks's changed demeanor suggested this casual base tour had just become something much more serious. "What kind of development, sir?" Martinez asked. "We ran the standard background check on Detective Vance for our visitor logs. Very interesting results." Brooks's smile was cold and professional. "Turns out there are some serious questions about her current status with Silver Ridge PD." Alara's face went pale, but her posture remained controlled. Titan moved slightly closer to her, his earlier alert behavior shifting to a protective stance. "What kind of questions?" Jack asked. "The kind that require official answers." Brooks gestured to the MPs. "Detective Vance, we're going to need you to come with us for a detailed interview." "Am I under arrest?" "That depends on what you tell us about why you're really here and why you lied about your credentials." Jack stepped forward. "Sir, with respect, this woman and her partner were victims of a violent crime. They need medical attention, not interrogation." "Chief Thorne, I appreciate your concern for their welfare, but when someone shows up on our base under suspicious circumstances with false credentials and a military-trained detection dog that's alerting on our equipment, that becomes a significant security issue." "False credentials?" Alara's voice was steady, but Jack could see the tension in her jaw. "Silver Ridge PD has no record of any Detective Vance being assigned to investigate activity near military installations. In fact, they have no record of you being on active duty status at all." They do, however, have record of a Detective Alara Vance who was reported missing 3 days ago. The implications of Brooks's words hung in the air like a physical presence. If Alara wasn't really on official duty, and if she'd been missing for 3 days, then everything she'd told them was potentially false. There has to be some mistake, Jack said, though he was beginning to question his own assumptions about the woman he'd rescued. Maybe, but until we figure out what kind of mistake, our guest is going to be staying in more secure accommodations. Brooks nodded to the MPs. Escort her to Building 42 for processing. Full security protocols. As the military police moved to flank Alara and Titan, Jack caught something in her eyes. Not fear, but calculation. She was assessing the situation, looking for options. And in that moment, he realized that whatever else she might be, Detective Alara Vance was definitely not an innocent civilian who had stumbled into the wrong situation. "Wait," Martinez said suddenly, his voice carrying an authority that made everyone pause. "Before we go any further with this, I want to check something." He walked over to the shipping containers where Titan had shown interest earlier, pulling out a small device that Jack recognized as a handheld chemical detector. "Chief, what are you doing?" Brooks asked, his tone sharp with authority and something that might have been concern. "Following up on something our guest's dog indicated. Standard procedure when we have a trained detection animal alert on base materials." Brooks's face darkened. "That's completely unnecessary. Those containers have been inspected and cleared according to all protocols. Then this should confirm that everything is in order." Martinez activated the device and swept it near the container Titan had focused on. The device immediately began beeping in a rapid pattern that indicated positive detection of controlled substances. "Holy cow," one of the MPs muttered. Martinez looked at the readout, his expression grim. "This container shows positive for precursor chemicals, the kind used in controlled substance production." Brooks stepped forward quickly. "That has to be a malfunction. These containers were personally inspected and cleared by my office yesterday. Then either your inspection was inadequate, or someone wanted these chemicals to be transported without proper scrutiny." Martinez looked at Alara with new respect, then back at Brooks with suspicion. "Sir, I think we need to have a very different conversation about what's really going on here." Jack felt pieces of a puzzle clicking into place. Alara wasn't just any detective. She was someone investigating the very thing Titan had detected. And if Brooks had personally cleared containers that contained illegal chemicals, then the lieutenant colonel was either incompetent or complicit. "Chief Martinez," Brooks said, his voice carrying dangerous authority, "I'm ordering you to stand down this investigation immediately. These are classified materials related to ongoing operations." "Sir, with respect, chemical precursors for illegal drug production aren't classified military materials. They're evidence of criminal activity." Brooks's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing something cold and calculating underneath. "You're out of line, Chief. And you're interfering with matters beyond your clearance level. Then maybe we should get someone with the appropriate clearance level involved." Martinez pulled out his radio. "Base security, this is Chief Martinez. I need CID and the Provost Marshal at Hangar 7 immediately. We have a potential security breach involving controlled substances." "Chief Martinez," Brooks's voice was now openly threatening, "I'm ordering you to terminate that call immediately." But Martinez continued speaking into his radio, and Jack realized they had reached a point of no return. Whatever Brooks was involved in, he couldn't afford to let this investigation proceed. The lieutenant colonel's hand moved toward his sidearm. "Everyone down!" Alara shouted, her law enforcement training taking over as she recognized the signs of imminent violence. "Stay with us. The truth behind this conspiracy is about to be revealed, and Titan's reaction will save everyone's lives." Building 42 housed the base's administrative and security offices, but they never made it that far. The confrontation in the hangar had escalated beyond anyone's expectations when Brooks drew his weapon, forcing Martinez to call for immediate backup, while Jack positioned himself between the armed officer and the others. "Sir, holster your weapon," Martinez commanded, his own hand moving to his sidearm. "This is not how we handle security concerns on this base." Brooks's face was a mask of cold calculation. "Chief, you don't understand what you're interfering with. This operation is sanctioned at the highest levels. Then you won't mind explaining that to CID when they arrive." "CID isn't coming," Brooks replied with disturbing confidence. "I've already intercepted their communications. This base has been compromised for months, And you just walked into the middle of something much bigger than a simple security breach. Jack felt the familiar cold certainty of combat settling over him. Brooks wasn't just a corrupt officer. He was the center of whatever criminal operation Alara had been investigating. Detective Vance, Brooks continued, his weapon now trained directly on her, or whoever you really are, you've caused considerable problems for a very profitable arrangement. The question now is whether you were smart enough to walk away or foolish enough to die for whatever agency sent you here. Alara's response was not what anyone expected. Instead of surrendering or attempting to negotiate, she gave Titan a subtle hand signal that Jack almost missed. The German Shepherd exploded into motion with the speed and precision of a guided missile, but instead of attacking Brooks directly, Titan launched himself at the shipping container that had tested positive for chemicals, using his full body weight to tip it over. The container crashed to the ground with a tremendous noise, its contents spilling across the hangar floor. But what emerged wasn't aircraft parts or maintenance supplies. It was dozens of sealed packages containing white powder and processing equipment that clearly had nothing to do with legitimate military operations. "Holy cow," Martinez breathed, staring at the evidence now scattered across the floor. Brooks's moment of shock at Titan's action was all Jack needed. He covered the distance between them in 2 quick steps, using techniques learned in years of combat training to disarm the lieutenant colonel before he could recover from his surprise. "Base security, this is Chief Martinez." Martinez spoke rapidly into his radio, while Jack secured Brooks. "We have a confirmed security breach in Hangar 7. Request immediate response from CID, FBI, and DEA. We've uncovered a major drug trafficking operation involving senior base personnel." "Copy that, Chief Martinez. Multiple agencies are en route." As Brooks was secured with zip ties from Martinez's equipment kit, Jack looked at Alara with new understanding. "You're not just a missing detective, are you?" "DEA, Special Agent Alara Vance," she replied, finally dropping the pretense. 18 months deep cover, investigating a trafficking network that's been using military logistics to move fentanyl precursors across the western United States. And Brooks, the inside man who's been making it all possible. Every shipment, every transport authorization, every security clearance that allowed this operation to function, it all went through his office. Martinez was studying the evidence scattered across the floor. How long has this been going on? At least 2 years, maybe longer. They have been incredibly careful, using legitimate military supply chains to mask their criminal activities. If Titan hadn't alerted on those containers, we might never have gotten the evidence needed to prove Brooks's involvement. What about your missing persons report, the one Brooks mentioned? Cover story. My department needed a plausible reason for me to disappear if my undercover identity was blown. When Brooks tried to have me killed 3 days ago, we activated the missing persons protocol to give me operational flexibility. Jack looked at the bound lieutenant colonel, who was glaring at them with unconcealed hatred. So, the attack in the snow, Brooks figured out I was getting too close to his operation. He sent his people to eliminate me and Titan. They thought we were both dead when they left us in that blizzard. But you survived, and now we have him and his evidence. More than that, Martinez added, consulting his radio. Base security is reporting unusual activity at the chemical storage facility. Looks like Brooks's people are trying to destroy evidence before we can secure it. Alara stood, brushing dust from her clothes. Then we need to stop them. This operation is bigger than just what's in this hangar. If they clean up their main processing site, we lose everything. Agent Vance, with respect, you've been through significant trauma. Let the incoming federal agents handle the rest of this. Chief Martinez, those agents are 30 minutes out. In 30 minutes, the people Brooks has been working with will have destroyed evidence worth millions of dollars and eliminated any witnesses who could testify against the network. Jack was already checking his equipment. How many people are we talking about? Unknown. But they're professionals, they're armed, and they're operating on a base they know better than we do. Except we have advantages they don't expect, Martinez pointed out. We know the facility layout, we have access to base communications, and we have Titan. The German Shepherd was sitting alertly beside the scattered evidence, his behavior indicating he was ready for whatever came next. His detection of the chemicals had been the key to unraveling Brooks's operation, and his intelligence had already proven invaluable. What do you need from us? Jack asked. Coordination with base security to surround the chemical facility. But we need to be careful. We don't know how many other base personnel are involved in this network. Martinez was already working his radio, contacting specific individuals he trusted to coordinate a response without alerting potential co-conspirators. Master Sergeant Williams, this is Chief Martinez. I need you to coordinate a lockdown of the chemical storage facility. Use only personnel from Alpha Company and do it quietly. Copy that, Chief. What's the nature of the threat? Confirmed criminal activity involving unauthorized chemical processing. Treat all personnel in that area as potentially hostile until we can sort out who's involved. As they prepared to move toward the chemical facility, Brooks spoke for the first time since being disarmed. You have no idea what you're interfering with. This operation has protection at levels you can't imagine. We'll see about that, Jack replied. Right now, all I see is a corrupt officer who tried to have innocent people killed. Those people weren't innocent. They were federal agents trying to destroy a business arrangement that's been beneficial to everyone involved. Everyone except the communities being flooded with illegal fentanyl, Alara shot back. Brooks smiled coldly. You think this is about drugs? This is about funding operations that Congress won't approve and supporting allies that official channels can't help. The money from this network has prevented more conflicts than you'll ever know. That's quite a justification for trafficking poison into American communities. That poison keeps Chinese fentanyl off the streets. Our product is cleaner, safer, and more controlled than anything coming from overseas labs. Jack felt disgust rising in his throat. You're talking about manufacturing illegal drugs as a patriotic duty. I'm talking about pragmatic solutions to complex problems. But you wouldn't understand that level of strategic thinking. Martinez finished his radio coordination and looked at Brooks with contempt. Sir, I've spent 20 years serving this country, and I've never seen anything as twisted as trying to wrap drug trafficking in the flag. Your 20 years of service have been spent following orders without understanding the bigger picture, Chief. Some of us have had to make harder choices. The choice to betray your oath and endanger the people you swore to protect isn't hard, it's criminal. As they secured Brooks for transport and prepared to move on the chemical facility, Alara knelt beside Titan and scratched behind his ears. Good boy. You did exactly what we trained for. The German shepherd's tail wagged slightly, and he looked up at her with the intelligent eyes that had been the key to unraveling the entire conspiracy. His reaction to the shipping containers had indeed said it all, revealing not just the presence of illegal chemicals, but the corruption at the heart of a criminal network that had been hiding behind military authority. Ready to finish this? Jack asked. Jack asked. Ready, Alara replied, standing and checking her equipment. As they prepared to confront the rest of Brooks's operation, none of them knew that the chemical facility held surprises that would test everything they'd learned about trust, courage, and the true meaning of service. But they did know one thing for certain. Titan's incredible detection abilities and unwavering loyalty had given them the evidence they needed to bring justice to those who had betrayed everything the military stood for. The final confrontation was about to begin, and the stakes couldn't be higher. The chemical storage facility at Fort Carson sat on the northeastern edge of the base, a cluster of reinforced concrete buildings designed to safely contain hazardous materials used in military operations. As their convoy approached through the early morning darkness, Jack could see unusual activity around the main processing building. Vehicles that shouldn't be there, lights that indicated work being done outside normal hours, and movement patterns that suggested urgency rather than routine maintenance. Base security, this is Chief Martinez. Martinez spoke into his radio as they positioned themselves for observation. We're in position at the chemical facility, requesting status on perimeter teams. Copy that, Chief. We have teams positioned at all vehicle access points. No one gets in or out without authorization. Alara was studying the facility through binoculars, with Titan alert beside her. The German shepherd's behavior indicated he was detecting the 6 chemical signatures they had found in the shipping containers, but on a much larger scale. How many people are we looking at? Jack asked. At least 15 vehicles in the compound. Assuming average occupancy, we're talking about 30 to 40 individuals, but some of these are heavy trucks, the kind used for transporting large quantities of materials. Martinez consulted his facility layout diagrams. The main processing happens in Building Charlie. That's where they'd have the equipment for converting precursor chemicals into finished product. If they're trying to destroy evidence, that's where they'll be focused. And if they're trying to escape with product already processed, Storage Building Delta. That's where finished materials would be kept before distribution. Jack studied the layout, his military training automatically assessing tactical options. 2 primary objectives, multiple hostile forces, unknown number of potential hostages. We need to split our attention without dividing our strength. What about civilian authorities? FBI, DEA, backup? 20 minutes out at best, Alara replied, checking her watch. If these people are as professional as I think they are, they'll be long gone by then. Then we adapt the mission, Martinez decided. Primary objective becomes preventing escape and securing evidence. Secondary objective is prisoner capture. What about Titan? How can his detection abilities help us here? Alara looked at her partner, who was showing focused interest in specific buildings within the compound. He can tell us which buildings have the highest chemical concentrations. That'll help us prioritize our approach and avoid areas that might be dangerous due to chemical exposure. Show me, Jack said. Alara gave Titan a subtle hand signal, and the dog began a systematic assessment of the air currents coming from different parts of the facility. His behavior was methodical, professional, the product of extensive training in chemical detection under combat conditions. Building Charlie shows the strongest reaction, Alara observed. That's probably where they're doing active processing. Building Delta shows moderate reaction, stored materials, but he's also indicating something else. She paused, watching Titan's behavior carefully. Building Alpha, that's not supposed to be a chemical storage facility, Martinez checked his diagrams. Building Alpha is administrative offices. It shouldn't have any chemical signatures at all, unless they're using it for something it wasn't designed for, Jack realized, or unless there are people being held there who have been exposed to these chemicals. Hostages, Alara said grimly. If they're holding base personnel who discovered their operation, Building Alpha would be the logical place. The tactical situation had just become significantly more complex. Instead of a simple evidence preservation mission, they were now looking at a potential hostage rescue operation with multiple buildings and unknown numbers of hostile forces. Base security, this is Chief Martinez. We need to know if there are any base personnel unaccounted for from the chemical facility's normal operational staff. Stand by, Chief. A pause while information was checked. We show 7 personnel who should have reported for duty this morning but haven't checked in, all assigned to chemical facility operations. That's our hostage situation, Jack concluded. Building Alpha becomes priority 1. Agreed, but we need to coordinate with the team surrounding the perimeter. If we move on Alpha first, the people in Charlie and Delta will know we're here. Then we move on all the 3 simultaneously, Martinez decided. Alpha Company takes Charlie, Bravo takes Delta, and we handle Alpha with our current team plus backup. As Martinez coordinated with base security forces, Alara was watching Titan's behavior evolve. The dog had moved from general detection to what appeared to be tracking specific scent trails. Jack, Titan's picking up individual scent signatures. He's not just detecting chemicals anymore, he's tracking people who have been exposed to those chemicals. Can he follow the trails? Absolutely. Military working dogs are trained for personnel tracking under combat conditions. If someone's been moving between these buildings with chemical residue on their clothing, Titan can map their movements. Do it. Alara gave Titan a different signal, and the dog immediately began following scent trails with the precision of a bloodhound. His path led them to a maintenance shed between buildings Alpha and Charlie, a structure that didn't appear on Martinez's facility diagrams. Chief, what's that building? Jack pointed to the shed. Martinez studied his maps, confusion evident on his face. That's not supposed to be there. It's not on any of the official facility layouts. Recently constructed? Has to be. And if it's not on official diagrams, it wasn't approved through normal channels, which means it was built specifically for this operation, Alara realized. Titan, what do you smell? The German Shepherd's reaction to the shed was immediate and intense. His hackles rose, and he moved into a defensive posture that indicated immediate danger rather than simple chemical detection. People, Jack said, reading the dog's body language. Armed people. This is their command center, Martinez realized. They built their own facility right under our noses, using legitimate construction authorization from Brooks's office. Before anyone could respond further, the shed's door opened, and 3 figures in tactical gear emerged, weapons ready. But instead of military uniforms, they wore civilian contractor clothing with no identifying markings. Federal agents, Alara shouted, identifying herself. Drop your weapons! The response was immediate gunfire. that sent all three diving for cover behind a maintenance vehicle. But the shots were controlled, professional. These weren't panicked criminals, they were trained operators. Base security! This is Chief Martinez! Martinez spoke urgently into his radio while bullets sparked off the truck around them. We are taking fire at the chemical facility. Immediate tactical support required. Copy that, Chief. Response teams are moving to your location. Jack assessed their tactical situation. 3 hostiles confirmed. Unknown number, additional inside the shed. We're outgunned, but we have better position knowledge. Plus we have Titan, Alara added. Military working dogs are trained for combat support. What can he do? Detection, tracking, and non-lethal suspect apprehension, but only on command and only when the tactical situation allows for it. More gunfire erupted from the shed, followed by the sound of vehicles starting up inside the compound. The people in buildings Charlie and Delta were preparing to evacuate now that their security had been compromised. We're about to lose the entire operation, Martinez said grimly. Not if we can take the command center, Jack replied. If that shed is coordinating their evacuation, disrupting it might buy us time for backup to arrive. How do you propose we take a fortified position with 3 people and a dog? Jack looked at Titan, who was watching the shed with focused intensity. The dog clearly understood that hostile forces were inside and was waiting for commands from his handler. What's Titan's training for building entry? Jack asked Alara. Full tactical support. He can clear rooms, detect additional threats, and subdue suspects using non-lethal force. But he needs human backup for complex operations. Then we use him as our advanced scout. He goes in first, assesses the situation, and signals us about what he finds. That's asking a lot of a dog, even one as well-trained as Titan. Alara looked at her partner, who seemed to understand the gravity of the situation. He's trained for this, but more than that, he wants to do this. These people tried to kill us both. Martinez had been monitoring radio traffic during their planning. Base security reports that vehicles are leaving the compound through service roads that aren't on any official maps. If we don't move now, the evidence and the people responsible will disappear. Then we move, Jack decided. Titan leads, we follow. Standard tactical entry procedures. Alara gave Titan a complex series of hand signals that initiated his combat support protocol. The dog immediately moved toward the shed, using a route that kept him concealed from the windows, his training evident in every movement. He's incredible, Martinez murmured, watching Titan's professional approach to the building. He's been training for this his entire life, Alara replied proudly. Military working dogs are some of the most capable operators in any tactical situation. Titan reached the shed and began what could only be described as a methodical reconnaissance. He moved around the perimeter, detecting scents and sounds that would tell his handlers what they were facing inside. After 2 minutes, he returned to their position and gave Alara a series of signals with his posture and movement. 4 people inside, she interpreted. 2 armed, 2 civilians who are probably technicians or coordinators. No immediate booby traps or additional threats detected. Can he disable the armed individuals? That's what he's trained for. But we need to coordinate the entry so we can secure the others before they can destroy evidence. Jack checked his equipment one final time. Standard breaching protocol. Titan neutralizes threats. We secure evidence and prisoners. Martinez, can you coordinate with base security to ensure no vehicles leave the compound? Already done. We've got the entire area locked down. Then let's finish this. The entry into the shed was swift and decisive. Titan led the assault with the precision of a guided missile, using his speed and training to disable the 2 armed guards before they could react to the breach. Jack and Martinez followed immediately behind, securing the tactical situation, while Alara moved to prevent the destruction of computer equipment and documents. What they found inside the shed exceeded their expectations. This wasn't just a command center for the current operation. It was a comprehensive intelligence hub that had been monitoring base security, tracking federal investigations, and coordinating criminal activities across multiple military installations. Holy cow, Martinez breathed, looking at wall displays that showed detailed maps of bases throughout the western United States. This operation is massive. Alara was already photographing computer screens and securing hard drives. They've been tracking federal investigations for months. Look at this. They knew about my undercover assignment almost from the beginning. Which explains how Brooks knew to try to eliminate you, Jack realized. More than that, she replied, pointing to a communications log. They've been getting intelligence from someone inside federal law enforcement, someone high enough to access DEA operational files. The implications were staggering. The drug trafficking network wasn't just using military logistics, it had penetrated federal law enforcement agencies as well. Base security, this is Chief Martinez, Martinez reported, while they secured evidence. We have control of the command center. Be advised, we've uncovered evidence of a criminal conspiracy involving multiple federal agencies and military installations. Copy that, Chief. FBI and DEA response teams are en route. ETA 10 minutes. What about the other buildings? Jack asked. Alpha Company reports, Building Charlie is secure. They found extensive chemical processing equipment and approximately 50 pounds of finished fentanyl ready for distribution. Bravo Company reports Building Delta contains storage facilities for precursor chemicals worth an estimated $5 million on the street. And Building Alpha? 7 base personnel found alive but drugged. They're being transported to medical for treatment. Appears they were being held as leverage in case the operation was discovered. Alara was continuing to document evidence when she found something that made her face pale. Jack, Martinez, look at this. She pointed to a communication log showing planned operations at other military bases. This isn't ending here. They have similar setups at Fort Hood, Camp Pendleton, and Naval Station Norfolk. We've uncovered one piece of a nationwide network. How many people are involved? Based on these communications, at least 200 individuals across military and federal agencies. This is organized crime on a scale that threatens national security. Jack felt the weight of what they'd discovered settling on his shoulders. What had started as a rescue mission had evolved into uncovering a criminal conspiracy that could undermine public trust in military and federal law enforcement. Agent Vance, a new voice called from outside the shed. They turned to see a man in FBI tactical gear approaching. Agent Morrison, FBI Counterintelligence. We've been tracking this network for 8 months. Agent Morrison, Alara replied, immediately recognizing the authority and coordination required for an operation of this scope. What took you so long? Morrison smiled grimly. We needed inside evidence to confirm our suspicions about military involvement. Your undercover work and the evidence you've gathered here provides the foundation for prosecutions across multiple jurisdictions. What about Brooks? Lieutenant Colonel Brooks is being transported to federal custody as we speak. Based on the evidence in this facility, he'll be facing charges under the Uniform Code of Military Justice, as well as federal drug trafficking statutes. We're looking at life imprisonment without possibility of parole. And the others? 43 individuals have been arrested across all locations today. The network's financial assets, estimated at over $50 million, have been frozen. This represents the largest military corruption case in modern history. Martinez was securing the last of the evidence when he looked up with concern. Agent Morrison, what about the security implications? If this network has been operating for years, how do we ensure it hasn't compromised ongoing military operations? That's going to require a comprehensive review of base security protocols nationwide, which is why I'm hoping Chief Martinez would consider accepting a promotion and assignment to lead that effort. Sir, the Department of Defense is creating a new position, Director of Installation Security Integrity. Someone with your experience and proven ability to identify and counter these threats would be ideal for the role. Jack watched Martinez process the offer, seeing both the opportunity and the enormous responsibility it represented. What about Agent Vance and Chief Thorne? Martinez asked. They're the ones who actually broke this case open. Morrison looked at both of them thoughtfully. Agent Vance will be receiving the DEA Medal of Valor for her undercover work and the intelligence that made today possible. As for Chief Thorne, Naval Special Warfare Command has been very interested in an individual with his tactical skills and proven ability to work with civilian law enforcement. Meaning there's a joint task force being formed to investigate and prevent similar networks at other installations. If you're interested in continuing this type of work, we could use someone with your capabilities. Jack looked around the shed at the evidence of corruption they'd uncovered. Then at Alara and Titan, who had been instrumental in exposing the conspiracy. The work was important, the team was effective, and the mission was clear. What about Titan? He asked. This dog's detection abilities were crucial to everything we accomplished here. Alara smiled. Titan and I come as a package deal. Wherever this task force operates, he'll be our primary chemical and explosive detection asset. Then I'm interested, Jack replied. As federal agents continued processing the crime scene and securing evidence, the 3 humans and 1 remarkable dog who had uncovered the conspiracy stood together outside the shed that had been the nerve center of a nationwide criminal network. "You know," Martinez said, "when I got the call about 2 civilians found in the snow, I thought it was going to be a routine rescue operation. Instead, you helped expose the biggest military corruption scandal in decades," Morrison replied. "The intelligence gathered here will lead to prosecutions and security improvements that will protect military installations for years to come." "What happens now?" Jack asked. "Now we do the paperwork, testify at numerous court proceedings, and start building the systems to prevent this from happening again," Alara replied with a weary smile. "And then we move on to the next case. Because unfortunately, this probably isn't the only criminal network that's figured out how to exploit military resources." 3 weeks later, the base gymnasium at Fort Carson was decorated with flags and filled with personnel from multiple branches of the military and federal law enforcement. The ceremony was designed to recognize those who had exposed the drug trafficking conspiracy, but more importantly, to demonstrate the military's commitment to rooting out corruption and maintaining the integrity of its operations. Alara stood at attention in her dress blue DEA uniform, the Medal of Valor prominent on her chest. Beside her, Jack wore his Navy dress whites, the bronze star he'd received for his actions during the crisis reflecting the gymnasium's lights. Martinez, now wearing the insignia of his promotion to Chief Warrant Officer 5, stood with the dignity of someone who had proven his worth under the most challenging circumstances. And at the center of it all was Titan, wearing a custom collar with a special commendation medal designed specifically for working dogs who had performed exceptional service to their country. The base commander, a no-nonsense colonel who had been thoroughly briefed on the extent of the conspiracy that had operated under his command, stepped to the podium. "Ladies and gentlemen, we gather today not just to honor individual acts of courage, but to reaffirm our commitment to the values that define military service. The conspiracy uncovered by these individuals represented a betrayal of everything we swear to defend, but their actions in exposing and stopping that betrayal represent the very best of what it means to serve." He looked directly at Titan. "Special recognition goes to military working dog Titan, whose detection abilities and unwavering loyalty were instrumental in gathering the evidence that brought criminals to justice. Titan represents the partnership between humans and animals that has been a cornerstone of military effectiveness for centuries." The applause was thunderous, and Titan sat at perfect attention, somehow understanding that this recognition was for him. As for the humans involved in this operation, their courage under pressure and their refusal to accept corruption as inevitable have set an example for all of us. Agent Vance, Chief Martinez, and Chief Thorne, your actions have resulted in the arrest and conviction of 43 individuals, the seizure of $50 million in criminal assets, and security improvements that will protect military personnel and civilian communities for years to come. The formal ceremony concluded with the presentation of unit citations and the announcement of the new Joint Military-Civilian Anti-Corruption Task Force, with Martinez as director and Alara and Jack as lead field operatives. But the moment that touched everyone in the audience came when Alara knelt beside Titan and whispered something in his ear. The dog's tail wagged once, and he looked up at her with the intelligent eyes that had seen through the deception when human intelligence had failed. After the ceremony, as the crowd dispersed and the formal proceedings ended, Jack found himself standing with Alara and Titan on a hill overlooking the base. The Colorado mountains provided a magnificent backdrop, and the setting sun painted the sky in shades of gold and crimson. "Think he understands what he accomplished?" Jack asked, watching Titan survey the base below them. "He understands that we succeeded in our mission and that the people who tried to hurt us are no longer a threat," Alara replied. "For a working dog, that's all the understanding he needs." "What about you? Any regrets about how this all turned out?" Alara considered the question seriously. "I came to Colorado to investigate a drug trafficking network. I ended up uncovering corruption that went deeper than anyone imagined, and finding partners I can trust with my life. No regrets." "Partners?" The task force we're forming isn't just about investigating criminal networks. It's about proving that cooperation between military and civilian agencies can accomplish things that neither could do alone. What we did here, combining your tactical expertise, Martinez's institutional knowledge, my investigative experience, and Titan's detection abilities, that's the model for how we protect our country from threats that don't respect traditional boundaries. Jack nodded, understanding the larger significance of what they'd accomplished. And the criminals? Are you satisfied with the justice they received? Lieutenant Colonel Brooks was sentenced to 25 years in federal prison and received a dishonorable discharge. His military pension was revoked, and he'll never be eligible for veterans' benefits. The other military personnel involved received court-martial convictions and sentences ranging from 5 to 15 years. The civilian contractors and federal employees received federal convictions under RICO statutes with similar sentences. That seems appropriate, more than appropriate. The financial investigation recovered evidence of where every dollar of their profits went. The money is being used to fund addiction treatment programs in the communities that were affected by their fentanyl distribution network. Justice and restitution. Exactly. As they prepared to leave, Martinez joined them on the Hill. His new position had already begun generating assignments that would take him across the country, implementing security improvements at installations that had been identified as potentially vulnerable. "Any word on our first joint task force assignment?" he asked. "Fort Hood," Alara replied. "Intelligence suggests there might be a similar network operating there, but using different methods and different points of infiltration. When do we leave?" "Next week, but this time we'll have resources, authority, and the knowledge that our methods work." "And we'll have Titan," Jack added, reaching down to scratch the German Shepherd behind the ears. Titan looked up at the three humans who had become his pack, his tail wagging slowly. His expression seemed to say that wherever they went, whatever challenges they faced, he was ready. "You know what the best part of all this is?" Martinez said as they walked back toward the base. "What's that?" "When I woke up 3 weeks ago, I thought the biggest challenge I'd face that day would be dealing with routine paperwork and maybe a minor disciplinary issue. Instead, I helped expose a criminal conspiracy and formed a team that's going to spend the next few years protecting military installations from threats we're just beginning to understand." "Funny how life works out," Jack agreed. "Not funny," Alara corrected. "Purposeful. We found each other because we were all in the right place at the right time, doing the right things for the right reasons. That's not coincidence. That's what happens when people committed to justice end up working together. Think we'll be as effective on future cases?" "I think we'll be more effective," she replied confidently, "because now we understand each other's capabilities and we trust each other's judgment. And we have Titan, whose detection abilities give us advantages that criminal networks won't expect." As they reached the base proper, Jack reflected on how dramatically his life had changed since that night in the blizzard. He'd come seeking peace and solitude, but found something more valuable, a sense of purpose combining his military skills with clear moral objectives. "Agent Vance, Chief Thorne," Martinez said formally as their paths diverged. "It's been an honor serving with you both." "The honor's been mutual, Chief Martinez," Jack replied. "See you Monday morning for mission briefing," Alara added. "We've got a country to protect." As Jack walked to his quarters, he heard Titan's tags jingling beside Alara. The sound was reassuring, a reminder that the remarkable German Shepherd would continue as their early warning system against threats human senses might miss. The mountains stood eternal in gathering darkness, silent witnesses to the events below. Somewhere in those mountains, other criminal operations were probably developing, confident their activities would go undetected. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The joint task force they were forming would face challenges none could anticipate. But they had faced them together, with confidence earned under the most difficult circumstances. Titan's reaction to those shipping containers had indeed said it all, exposing corruption hidden behind military respectability. The dog's reaction had revealed truth, and truth had set them free to pursue justice. Their work was just beginning.
The stories end here, but the journey continues. Many new episodes are waiting for you. And if you enjoy, please take a moment to like, subscribe to our EV Story channel, and turn on the bell. See you in the next story.